Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Ground to get real life topics from a biblical perspective. My name is Brian Boyd. Today's topic is transition. And everyone, as always, I pray you all been well, safe, and have been blessed throughout this week. And before we jump into this topic, if you're viewing this on social media, please be sure to like and share this video. And if you're one of my equally amazing listeners, please be sure to download this episode and follow the Grounded Podcast on all podcasting platforms. But with that being said, everyone, let's jump into the topic of transition. And if I could be just a little transparent with you all once again this week, God has shifted my entire life over the past couple weeks. And that pretty much explains why I haven't been so consistent with posting this video content, because this hasn't been the easiest shift. And God has changed literally every aspect of my life, from my personal life to my professional life to even my spiritual walk with him. And sometimes it's just brought the lesson to me that there are going to be times in life where God is going to shift you and God is going to move you to different places. And while these things may not be the easiest things to do, they may not be the things that you really want to do, these are the things that you have to do in order to keep going with God and for God to truly elevate you to the next level. And that's where those other two episodes came from, the topic of elevation, of sometimes, you're in a place where God has to remove things out of your life, or he has to move you in order for you to go to the next level. And then from the other one of heavy is the head, to understand that regardless of the things that come into your life, regardless of the things that hit you, that you have to get up and you have to keep going with God if you're going to get to where you're going to be, if you're going to achieve the purpose that he has for you in life. And it's so interesting because I had no idea that when I was doing those episodes that I was directly talking to my situation and the shift that he brought me through, particularly through this week. And everyone, it's times like this that come up that reminds me that, once again, no matter what it is that you're doing, no matter what it is that you're going through, when God leads you to do something, you ultimately have to go with him, because God knows what he has out there for you. God knows where he wants to take you. And that thing, although it may be hard to do, it's maybe hard to leave where you're at, it's going to be for your good, and it's going to be for the good of his kingdom as well. And you just have to be willing to go. And when I think about going, when I think about this journey, when I think about the transition of life, I can think of no greater story than that of Abraham. And that is something that God has showed me throughout this week as well, because Abraham was in a similar situation. We know him today as the father of faith. We know him as the father of many nations. But before all of that happened, he began as a man, and God had called on him to lead him to another place. And we're going to cover that story tonight. And there are two major points that I'm going to get. And the first of which is going to come from Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 4. And we're going to start right here. And it says in verse 1 that now the Lord had said to Abram, "Get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house to a land that I will show you. And I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curses you. And in you all of the families of the earth shall be blessed." So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Then Abraham took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all of their possessions that they had gathered, and the people who they had acquired in Haran, and they departed to go to the land of Canaan. So they came to the land of Canaan. And with that being said, there were a few things that happened in that place, a pretty major shift in life. And the thing that I think about, and the first point of this episode tonight, is that God will lead you to an entirely new place from time to time. And that's exactly what we saw right here. God told Abraham to leave this place that he's been all of this 75 years of his life and go into an entirely new place. And when it comes to that, I want you to just take a moment and imagine just how significant this is. This is somewhere that you've been all your life. You know the location, you know the people there. You're settled there with your significant other. You have, your family and everywhere else is that. And now all of a sudden you get the pull to go to an entirely new place. You don't know where this place is. You've never been there before. You didn't do any research on what the place is like, the areas that you're supposed to go in, but you just have this feeling that without a shadow of a doubt, it's just a push, like, I have to leave now. I just have to pack my bags and go wherever it is I'm supposed to go. And when you look at it from that perspective, that can be a pretty exciting, maybe, but also, interesting route, because you're in a place where you have to leave behind literally everything that you've ever known and go into this new place. And that's not always the easiest thing to do. But there are times, once again, that God is going to call us for us in life. And sometimes they may be minor, something as small as switching jobs to something major. Maybe you are moving to a new city. Maybe you're moving across the country. Maybe you're moving out of the country that you're in entirely to a different place. And honestly, y'all, that's a great place to be in. It's a sad place to be in because, yes, you have to leave everything behind, but it's also a beautiful place because God is calling you specifically to go into a new place, to go into a new avenue in life so that you can grow and become the person that you're ultimately supposed to be. And, on the surface, that's a pretty huge thing. You know what I mean? Like, I can't understate just how big that is, but it's also a truly amazing thing. You know what I mean? To go to an entirely different place and to do new things, and like I said, the thing that comes with this, the challenge of going to a new place, at least in my aspect of what I've experienced over this past week or so, is that sometimes you do have to leave behind places that you thought of. Sometimes you may have to close doors and stuff on situations and people and everything else that you may not want to, but these are things that are necessary in order for you to keep going, and like I said, that's the thing that's going to come with it. That's the challenge. But I truly believe in my heart that if God is leading you where you're going, everything will work out, even those situations that may have happened with those people or with those things in general. But you have to be willing to go. And with that being said, we're going to touch on the separate piece of this topic tonight. And the point that I got from this is going to come from the further verse of Genesis 12:6-9. And the point was that sometimes when God shows you the place that you're supposed to go, you don't always go there directly. It's a journey through life. And we're going to pick up once again Genesis 12:6-9 to explain that. And it reads there that Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem, which is far as the terebinth tree of Moreh, and the Canaanites were in the land. Then the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, to your descendants I will give this land. And there he built an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. And he moved from there to the mountain east of Bethel, and he pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. So Abram journeyed, going on still toward the south. And in these verses, you can see that God actually led Abraham to the promised land, which was the land of Canaan. He showed him the land, but right after that, we see Abraham leave the land of Canaan and go on to the outskirts. And if I can find a map while I'm whatever, if you're watching this video, I will try to post it. But Bethel and Ai are lands outside of Canaan. So even though God showed him that place, Abram didn't stay there because at that particular point in his life, he wasn't supposed to. And that's something that God showed me as well. And he didn't show me that until yesterday, which just shows you just how amazing God really is and just how powerful the Bible is, because you can read this book 100 times and get a new revelation every time you do. And that just comes full circle to what happens in the journey of life. Sometimes you may know where you're supposed to go, but you may not have to go there directly. There are going to be other things that you have to do in order for you to ultimately go to that place. And when I thought about that, I thought about the journey that Abraham went on, because after Abraham was in that place, he ended up going to Egypt. He met Pharaoh, and he met his servant Hagar, which was the mother of Ishmael, his very first son. And when you think about just the impact of that, if Abram would have just stayed in the land of Canaan, if he would have just stayed in the promised land and never went to any of those places, we wouldn't even see the descendants of Islam today, because Ishmael is indeed the father of the people who follow Islam. He's a father of the Islamic faith, and it's just amazing to see just the type of impact that stuff has. But it pretty much comes back to the journey. The journey, just because you see the destination doesn't always mean that you're going to get there right then. And there are things that you have to go through. And I think that sometimes in life, when it goes through the transition phase, you may have an idea where you're supposed to go, bringing it back full circle, but you may not go there directly because there's other growth. There are other things that you need to accomplish before you finally settle into the place that you're supposed to. And everyone, that is pretty much the topic of transition, understanding that these things do take time, that these things will take time, and these are things that you just have to do. And if I could summarize this message in, few words, because y'all know my summaries be pretty long, but understand that sometimes in life, when it's time for you to transition, there are things that are going to happen. There are going to be major shifts from time to time. But when those things come and when those situations happen, you have to go with God no matter what. Like, if you get nothing else out of this message, understand that you have to go with God no matter what, because God, like I said, God knows all, God is all, and God sees all. He knows what's out there for you. He knows where he needs you to go, and you have to go with him. And when I thought about this, it's so funny how this episode correlates to episode 5 that I did a grounded called Follow the Voice, which don't go and watch the episode. Seriously, do not go and watch the episode. And I'm not just telling y'all that to drag y'all to it. I really mean that. Audio and everything was terrible. But the basis of that episode was talking about Abraham once again and him taking the journey to go into the land and him really obeying what God said. And I also used the counter argument of the story of Jonah, because Jonah didn't go where God told him to go. And because he didn't go, he ended up in the belly of a whale for 3 days, contemplating his life and the things that he should do. And that's some of the things that may happen if we don't accept the transition. There may be times where we'll get caught up, or God will allow things to happen to us because we didn't take the time to move. Because as I said, once again, God knows all and sees all, and God knows the best route for us in life. And when we don't take that route, we not only bring harm to the kingdom, but we bring harm to ourselves. And that's something that I have took years to learn. And I just hope that whoever is listening to this message, that you understand that when you're led by God to do something, please do it. And I'm not saying that God does stuff on purpose, that God will strike you down himself, but I'm just saying that when God does those things at times, he's trying to move you out of the way so that he can move you into a place that you're supposed to be in, out of the way of harm. But with that being said, everyone, like I said, this is one of the shorter messages, but it's right, but it's tight, as the old saying go. And if I could just sum it up once again, go with God. If I could just encourage you all that no matter what happens in your life, you have to go with God. And as I said, the transition phase isn't the easiest phase, but it's one that's necessary in order for you to go and accomplish what God has for you. But with that being said, y'all, that is it. I thank you all so much for tuning into this video. If you liked it, please be sure to like and share across social media once again. If you're one of my listeners, please be sure to download this episode and follow the Grounded Podcast on those platforms that you're listening in. But everyone, as always, I thank you all so much for tuning in. I will talk to you all soon. Be blessed, be safe, and be prosperous until we meet once again. My name is Brian Boyd, and I will talk to you all very, very soon. Peace.